You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, episode 102. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Welcome back to the Tricorder Transmissions. This is episode 102. Today we are going to be covering the third episode of the animated series, One of Our Planets is Missing. I am Jeff Hewlett.
And I'm Craig Cohen.
Craig, pleasure to be back with you again this week.
Yeah, it's really great to be back on what feels like a regular schedule.
I know, it feels like forever since we've done like regular weekly commentary episodes like we did way back in the old days.
Yeah. I mean, with all the offshoot stuff going on with like Shore Leave and some other stuff, the Atavachron, I guess some of those gaps that we've been feeling aren't as felt by the audience.
Yeah, that's a good thing to say. That's true. I think we haven't really missed a lot. There was a couple times where we missed a week or two here and there, just because of scheduling things. And I think both of us were moving close to the same time, so things got a little bit hairy there. But I think we're pretty much back on track now.
Yeah, it feels good.
And you know what else feels good is that we've got our third chair back with us again for this episode. Mr. Chris Ritzer, a constant contributor to the show, is returning again for another commentary with us. Chris, how are you?
Hello there. Doing good. It's good to be back on.
It's always awesome to have you here. This is cool. This is the second time in Trek history that we've had a third person on for the commentaries, and I'm hoping this becomes a regular thing. It's kind of fun.
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and, Craig, just a quick aside, we're quickly rocketing towards our third anniversary here.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think. In a few short months, we're going to be celebrating the third anniversary of the Tricorder Transmissions, and by then we'll probably have like 120-ish episodes, thereabouts, maybe a few more.
Mm-hmm. Is that early August?
Yeah, it coincides perfectly with the 50th Las Vegas convention.
Nice. So maybe we can do some recording during that. Sort of makes it feel like a little bit of a celebration or a party.
Definitely, we have to. And one of the best parts about it is we stand a very good chance of having the entire Tricorder family there at one time in the same physical place. So you, me, Chris, Heather, and Claire are all going to be there. Plus, a lot of our regular guests are also going to be there.
Really, really cool.
Yeah, I definitely think you should record an episode at the bar.
Oh, good call. Good call. You're going to spill beer all over my laptop. I'm willing to give it a shot, though. We can probably record it with a phone or something. Mm-hmm. So they're pretty cool. So this episode is the third episode of the animated series. Amazing. We're at episode 3 already. It's called One of Our Planets is Missing. And it aired on September 22nd of 1973. Stardate is 5371.3, sometime in 2269. But I think one of the coolest things about this episode is that it is written by the great Mark Daniels, who directed many, many, many of the original series episodes, including some of the best ones, that arguably some of the best ones, including Space Seed, the Doomsday Machine, the Changeling, Mirror, Eye Mud, and of course the venerable Spock's Brain, among many others. So you guys feel the connection with Mark Daniels at the writer's desk for this one?
It definitely felt like an episode of the series that was tapping into charted territory.
Yeah, actually, it's a good thing you mentioned that because it really did tap into charted territory. So according to an interview from Starlog issue 114, Mark Daniels commented that he was very fond of the Doomsday Machine, which he directed. He liked it so much that he transferred a lot of the elements from that episode into the script for this one at the encouragement of Gene Roddenberry. Yeah, so maybe that's why it seems so familiar.
Yes.
And I also had kind of flashbacks or flash forwards, actually, of the motion picture with the giant cloud that's looming towards Earth. So it's not the first time we've seen a giant cloud either. All right. Are you guys ready to jump into the commentary?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yes.
All right. So as we always do, we're going to give you guys out there a 3 count. We're going to start our commentary for this episode. So if you haven't seen the episode and you want to stop here and go watch it so you don't have any spoilers, please feel free to do so and pick up where you left off. But we are going to start our commentary in 3, 2, 1.
I think one of the interesting things about this episode is the fact that this is the first animated episode really to introduce the ticking clock, right?
Oh, yeah, good call. Yeah, it's a little bit later in the episode, but yeah, they do introduce the clock there.
What clock?
There's a little countdown clock later on that we've seen in the original series. It's like one of those
a proverbial countdown clock too.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you meant the actual physical one.
Yeah. Well, you know what? In retrospect, I meant both.
Okay. Very good.
But
Noted
in the
log.
original series, one of the main things is there was always a ticking time bomb.
Of course.
In a lot of the episodes.
Yeah. So that's another carryover from the Doomsday Machine. We had the ticking clock where they only had so much juice left, and so there it is, written by Mark Daniels. Always nice we get this the familiar captain's log. What exactly is a cosmic cloud?
I guess it's a cloud that's cosmic.
I guess so, but
another thing that I noticed immediately is some of the alternate bridge coverage. This shot right here, that's an angle of the bridge that is very rarely seen on the original series.
Yeah, and they do some interesting sweeps of the bridge too in the animated series that we didn't see in the original series as well. Kind of those pan shots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the first word spoken by Arex, and he's actually named Captain Kirk. Actually calls him Lieutenant Arex. So we actually have an identification for this 3-armed alien in Chekhov's seat.
And not knowing, I mean, even knowing the trivia behind it, that really sounds like James Doohan, doesn't it?
It does, actually. I guess if you compare it to some of the other voices he's done, it's almost indistinguishable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still really burned up that, they couldn't find any money in the budget for Chekhov. And also that the rest of the cast didn't rally around him.
You would think. But I think Chekhov, didn't he refuse for other reasons, though? It wasn't.
Oh, did he? I don't know too much about the history.
Yeah, I thought he wasn't really into it.
Who doesn't like money? I mean, none of them were doing incredibly well when this series presented itself. I guess maybe Leonard Nimoy was the most successful. I mean, this was around the time where, William Shatner was living in a van. I think this was In Search Of for Leonard Nimoy as well.
Yeah, I think it was. I got to look up the dates, but I'm pretty sure it was. Shatner's music career didn't really take off.
So one of the things I noticed about this episode is there's talk of the Prime Directive, which I really, really dug.
Yeah, it's nice to see that included in here because it seems to be kind of hit and miss whether or not they consult the Prime Directive for the choices that they make. It actually kind of weighs in a little bit near the end.
Yeah,
for a second or two.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more.
Yeah.
And then this discussion here too about saving the people on the planet and consulting Bones about whether or not he should Kirk should let the planet know that they're going to be destroyed in 4 hours.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those excuses to let the three of them have a dialogue because we haven't seen a lot of that in the animated series so far. I think this is probably the most meaningful one so far. I love the fact that they bring back the Bob Wesley character. So he was previously in some other episodes. He was a Commodore in some previous episodes. It's nice to see they bring back a character from the original series. Even relatively minor, he's now the governor of this Mantilles planet.
Yeah.
Not his name. It sounded familiar, but I didn't know where I recognized it from.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris.
Yeah. So he is a character from the past. He was captaining a ship. I believe he was in the Ultimate Computer. Yeah.
Not to get off this episode though, but I recently read the autobiography of Jim Kirk that had come out, I guess, a couple months ago, maybe a year ago. If you're at all interested in the original series, it's a pretty entertaining read because it fills in a lot of blanks in Kirk's history and even fixes some continuity errors.
Really?
Yeah.
Any examples?
The Conscience of the King, you always wonder like how he ended up a kid on that planet.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it fills in the backstory there. It really paints a picture of his relationship with Gary Mitchell. And it also even explains away or explains how, David, his son, came to be sort of without him really being a part of his life.
Huh. Fascinating. I have to check that out. Yeah. So here's our flashback to the original series with Scotty complaining that there's too much drain on the ship and Kirk's asking for too much. So we get another nod.
Oh, don't jettison the pod.
I thought this was kind of neat too, as we see there's a new function to the shields here. They can issue an antimatter charge. So the shields aren't just for defense. They can do offensive things as well. That's kind of neat. I don't know, did they ever do anything like that on the original series? I don't believe they did.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So those little pieces of whatever those were. Oh, and Spock just dropped the bomb. The cloud is a living thing. So which kind of like the cloud from Obsession. Was a living thing, but I guess this is on a grander scale. But then the cloud from, how big was the cloud from Obsession? It wasn't the size of the ship or bigger. It was smaller, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, it was big enough to engulf a person. Yeah, I don't think it was ever really completely explained the size of it, but it definitely wasn't as big as this one. It's pretty amazing that McCoy has so much knowledge about what'll happen to the ship if the shields fail.
Yeah, like he's like totally the expert witness this episode.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love the interplay between the three characters, but McCoy just seems to be way too in the know. Usually Spock's the one that's that in tune with what's going on.
I guess either Mark Daniels is a really big Bones fan, or DeForest Kelley slipped him some money and said, "Hey,
give me some lines.
Get me some extra lines here."
I like that Bob Wesley calls Kirk Jim.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had a previous relationship to this, although he doesn't exactly look like the Bob Wesley from the original series, but his voice is kind of close, but not quite there.
Again, that really gets to how much research material the animators had.
Yeah, and the writers too. Yeah. Yeah, so here we go. We're doing some Spock doing his telltale analysis that he always does to try to figure out a way to get out of this situation. Kind of cool. I think this is great that Mark Daniels took a journey into writing to put this episode together. And it really does feel like a Trek episode.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you could definitely see this episode happening during the original series. And I think the effects wouldn't have been too crazy for it to pull off either. It definitely could have been done, I think, fairly easy.
Oh, for sure. Because, I mean, speaking of the Obsession cloud, they pulled that off. So this would be just a little bit larger, a little different bit of perspective out in space. But I think they could have definitely pulled that off. So it looks kind of like a big brain. This schematic they're showing of the cloud's makeup. Arex's voice is funny. I love it. So this is pretty cool, though, that we're finally getting some dialogue. I wonder why they didn't have him talk in the first two episodes. I don't know.
Yeah, no idea. I guess maybe they transitioned him in smoothly so nobody would really get too too loud about Chekhov not being there.
Yeah, and they waited a little longer to bring the cat lady in. So she doesn't show up for a little while yet. But I guess they figured they'd get a little more adventurous as time went on. But
does the cat lady show up in the first season?
I thought she showed up towards the end.
Okay.
Or was she just in the short second season? I really thought she was in it a little more than just those last few episodes. It's been a while since I've watched these, though. The audience is probably screaming at me right now.
Yeah, I guess we have to stay tuned.
Yeah. Here's more of McCoy's incredible knowledge about this cloud. You'd think he'd been here before. But this is a pretty cool situation that they're in. I mean, we didn't see the Enterprise on the original series flying through stuff, like, trying to avoid colliding into things.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat. It's a whole new direction for the ship. And there's definitely some good tension there. Yeah, there was more Scotty complaining about the engine. But do you notice how much medical terminology is in this episode? And McCoy spits out so much medical terminology, you have to question whether or not this was really intended for children. They wouldn't understand that. I barely understand it.
Yeah.
Without the subtitles on, I was like, wait a minute, what's he talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here's more shots of the Enterprise. I love this, flying through this cave. This is pretty neat. Sulu is a master pilot. Now, it looks to me like the Enterprise is going to hit this thing because it stops dead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Although that might be perspective there, too, right?
That's true. So here's your ticking time bomb, Craig. 15 minutes left. So we've got the ticking time bomb, and we need the heroics of somebody to pull us out.
I wonder who.
Who's gonna pull that off?
Now, this is something I love about this episode, because normally, really in the original series, Spock would always be the one that would end up coming with the way to solve the puzzle and all that, but this is great. Totally different for a change. Mr. Scott actually does his job, comes up with a really good idea, and pretty much saves the day.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome. And did we know before this that the engines, if they reached a certain state, this 2 anti-kilos, if it reached a certain state, the engines would no longer regenerate power?
I don't, not that I can recall.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting really into the operations of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And Scotty's like going through this whole rundown of how he can use the antimatter and matter and talking about the nacelles, and this is pretty neat to hear so much about the ship. I wish they'd have talked a little bit more about the ship like that in the original series. Oh, there's that guy with the mustache again.
I love that guy.
He should be in the episodes a little more. There's your time bomb again, 10 minutes. So here is probably my favorite part of the whole episode. We're seeing the inside of a nacelle. How awesome is that?
Yeah, this is something that would have been a little difficult to pull off on a TV budget.
Oh, for sure. I think it's really cool, though, that we're finally seeing, more of the inner workings of the ship. And it is another guy by the name of Gabler. So we get another officer introduced here. Right? I love how they had to run out of that room.
Mm-hmm.
They had to run out of the nacelle. Pretty neat. I like that view there down the hallway. That's pretty neat. Yep. So Scotty gets his hero moment. Very cool. Yeah. And a second time bomb. They have 42 minutes left before the cloud gets there. So you had a time bomb for the ship itself, and then you have a little longer time bomb for the planet. So now one's been diffused, of course. Yeah. And here we're going to get this debate, Craig, that you were mentioning before.
Yeah.
About the intelligence of the cloud and sensing food, and it's changing its direction to go towards food, and now they're gonna assume there's a brain. Yep. And McCoy seems to know all about it. It's almost certainly a brain, Jim. Uh-oh. And I love the looks that Kirk gets when he talks about destroying the brain. Everybody gets like these narrow eyes, like, oh, excuse me?
Again? Come on, Kirk. We're killing everything we come across.
Oh, my God. I love it. But then Kirk puts the hammer down. He's like, listen, man, my ship, my rules. You guys don't like it? Go rub. Nice commercial cliffhanger, though. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Oh, Spock and Uhura get to work together in this too, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
I like how Uhura gets to do a little bit more in the animated series. In fact, I think she gets a really big hero moment in an episode coming up pretty shortly. She gets to actually save the day.
I think in this episode they sort of worked all the characters into it pretty well. Everyone sort of gets their chance to shine a little bit.
Yeah, is the animated series maybe the beginning of what we see in the Trek films where everybody really gets their time to shine?
Yeah, true.
Where, I mean, we in the original series, it was always the Kirk and Spock show, and, throw McCoy in there a little bit more than everybody else, but, I think this has kind of given everybody else at least a little chance to step up. And some of them even get their own kind of focus episodes where they get to do even more. Oh, he almost got the jettison pod button there, Craig. And here we go, the self-destruction of the ship again. Kirk is really gung-ho to blow the ship up.
Yeah.
It's too bad he has to wait till Star Trek 3. That's a little ways in the future. Yeah.
At least he gets to fulfill his dream, so.
Yeah.
There's that.
Governor Wesley is pretty calm given the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is one really mellow dude.
Yeah, man.
I like how his lips sort of just float when he's not talking.
That's that Filmation animation for you. Yeah, and we're going to get the expose that McCoy's like, who's Katie? I love they get the expose that Wesley has an 11-year-old daughter, so it ups the stakes for the personal stakes for Wesley as well, which really don't amount to much of anything. Because we don't see him again, I don't think. Or maybe for a second at the end, it's like a thank you, right? Or does it cut right out? I think it was a pretty abrupt ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's a mention of the Universal Translator. So that explains how Spock can speak to the cloud, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's also, is there a little tweaking of the Vulcan rules here in terms of what they can and can't do?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean,
isn't this sort of similar to what, I guess, Spock did, like, through the wall that time?
That's what I was thinking.
The dude's mind, I guess, yeah, maybe it's something like that.
But we're talking a lot more distance here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess he's sort of inside of the thing, so...
I guess they get really close to the brain before they start, right?
Yeah, why not?
So there was
there's other clock we were talking about.
Yeah, that time counting machine. So I like how Spock has to sit in the chair with his arms outstretched to do this. Listen to me. I like how the voice of the cloud is the exact same voice as the Enterprise computer's voice.
Yeah, that's Majel Barrett, right?
Yeah, I guess maybe that's the Universal Translator translating.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
the cloud. So a little earlier, something that we glossed over, we were busy talking about other stuff that I really wanted to bring up, is that there was a point in this episode where Kirk essentially paraphrases a quote that he made in the original series from A Taste of Armageddon, where he says, "The man rose above primitiveness by vowing, 'I will not kill today.'" The original quote was, "We're human beings with blood of 1,000,000 savage years on our hands, but we can stop it. We can admit that we're killers, but we're not going to kill today. That's all it takes, knowing that we won't kill today." I thought it was kind of cool that Mark Daniels wrote that in there.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that he didn't completely nail the quote either, because it shows that he was working from memory and not reading the script.
Yeah, I love those little touchback moments. That's one of the things that makes the animated series endearing to me.
Yeah, they tied into the original series really well. I really dig that.
I like this kind of ethereal Spock voice talking to the cloud. Up 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Boy, we're getting close.
Mm.
I think that's Majel Barrett doing the voice of the cloud, isn't it?
Yes, sounds like her.
Yeah, it's her.
Right up there's that time counter again. I wonder how the cloud actually perceives things. She's talking about how small all the people on Mantilles are. The cloud doesn't have eyes.
No.
Yeah, I think the cloud probably thinks it's going insane at this point, having a head of a voice going on inside its head.
Yeah, what is this, God? Is it Cloud God talking to it? That would probably throw me for a loop if I was some big giant cloud floating through space. Now I like this part a lot, where Spock actually merges with the cloud and allows the cloud to see inside the ship and gives it the chance to actually physically touch somebody to prove that there's living beings. I thought that was a really cool solution to the problem. So I don't think we ever had Spock allow somebody else through a mind meld to take control of his body. We've seen an alien take control of his body, but not this voluntary through a mind meld way. So I didn't even know that was a possibility. Is that some of the more that bending of the Vulcan rules? Oh, here's some of that Lassie footage. That's actually from Lassie's Rescue Rangers.
That's great.
Yeah, those two little kids in the boat on the screen. And the guy and the two kids running with the dog.
Yeah, I like how they make them all blue, too.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. They're supposed to be ghosts or something?
I guess it might have been like a rights issue thing.
That's true. Maybe they couldn't show Lassie. Maybe they had the ghost Lassie out. It'd be a little weird to just ghost Lassie and not the kids, right?
Yeah.
It'd be like Ghost Dog. Yeah. I like how Uhura pressed like 3 buttons and it pulled up video of Earth. Like those 3 buttons are the ones you have to press to bring up images of Earth. They have specific buttons on the console just for that.
This seems like he's doing a big Jedi mind trick to the cloud. He's like, you do not want to eat us. You want to go away. Get out of our galaxy. And then the cloud's like, yes, I will leave your galaxy.
Go back the way you came.
I like how the cloud is actually peaceful, though, once it understands what's going on. It's kind of like Devil in the Dark, in a way, where it wasn't necessarily an evil monster. We considered it evil because of what it was doing, but it just didn't realize what it was doing until someone corrected it.
It was an herbal cloud.
Yeah. Well, you know what, though? Speaking of the Prime Directive, I'm going to throw this one out there because this kind of bothers me. So he sent the cloud back along its pathway. Now, we can assume that the pathway it took is empty because it ate everything.
Yeah.
So is the cloud going to starve on its way back? Did he essentially kill the cloud?
But even when it gets back there, what's it going to do? I mean, what was its original source of nutrients?
That's what I'm saying. That's why it was here. It was eaten because it had nothing to eat, right? Maybe. So maybe we just witnessed the clouds. Well, now the cloud's morally conflicted about eating anything that it senses as alive now, right? So now maybe it won't eat at all and it'll starve to death. Yeah,
now it will just eat stars instead and just kill entire solar systems without knowing it.
Oh man, there's a lot to unpack here. So. Well, ending credits are rolling, and we're at the end of another commentary track, and I guess it's time to bring up our essential voting yet again. Craig, I went first last time. Do you want to step up first this time?
Sure. And I'm going to go on record here saying that I don't really think there's anything here that makes the episode essential. Hearing that Chekhov's replacement speak for the first time doesn't really add anything. I think learning about how the ship works doesn't really contribute anything to the discussion. And as I stated at the sort of beginning of the episodes, it feels like territory that we've been in before. So as entertaining and as engaging as the episode is, I just don't see anything there.
Interesting. So I'm gonna split this vote, and I'm going to go essential. Not just because Arex talks for the first time, but he's actually named for the first time. So I'm considering it his real introduction to the audience. I mean, we've seen him before. We had no idea who he was. We didn't know what his name was. Now we actually know what his name is, which is pretty cool. The inside of the ship stuff is really neat too. I like the fact that we get the additional functionality of the shields being used as a weapon. That's technology we haven't seen before. And we see a little bit of a variation on Spock's mental powers, but I don't necessarily think it's something we haven't seen him do before, maybe just slightly different than things we've seen. But it's enough for me to give it the nod. So we'll do an essential and a non-essential. Chris, what do you think?
I think this one's really tough, and I'm really, really torn on this one. I think I'm going to go non-essential, though. I think it's really, really close, but it seems to be just like a really polished episode with really not enough new stuff there for me, I guess. But it's still, I think, definitely an animated show that you should see. I do think it's one of the better ones because it's so much like an original series episode. It's really, really good, but I think it's just like slight notch below.
Oh, interesting. All right. So we're split up on the essential with Chris backing up Craig on this one. So good discussion. I have a couple of quick notes that I wanted to throw out to you guys before we close the show up. The first one is about Robert Wesley, the Robert Wesley character, who is played by actor Barry Russo in the original series, but in this episode they couldn't get Barry Russo back, so you know who did the voice. So James Doohan stepped in for Barry Russo and did the voice of Robert Wesley. But I think the voice that James Doohan did is a little different than the voices we're used to him doing in the series. He actually sounded more like a regular person.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he sounded really, really baked.
Yeah, he was super mellow, man.
I think you'd have to be, though. If your planet's going to get destroyed, man, I'd just go for it. Just start puffing away, and I mean, you got to do something, so.
So one other really cool original series tie-in that I didn't mention during the actual commentary that I wish I had when we were there, but this episode features one of the very few sound effects from the original series that was reused in the animated series. And there is an alarm that goes off in the episode Devil in the Dark when the Horta steals the pump mechanism.
Ah, cool.
From the Pergium reactor. That's reused in this episode, which I think is really cool because it's a nice tie-in with my favorite original series episode. So pretty cool little side note there.
Definitely.
And I think just to expand a little bit on the fact that this series is dismissed as canon, I think that one thing that comes out of this series that is a little overlooked too is the Indosian race, which is what Mr. Arex is. And there actually was an Indosian character that served under Riker when he was in command of the USS Titan. So that was kind of cool that they actually, I think it was Lieutenant Kershaw, I think it was a female, but I like that they actually used the Indosians in other Trek in the future. So it's not just a throwaway character. It actually evolved and the race was used again. So, I know we've all agreed that we all feel this is canon, but do you guys think that something like that actually adds to the fuel to the cannon fire?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I think it's been accepted by pretty much every series that's followed. They've had some kind of a callback to the animated series, and it's so well liked by everyone. It definitely adds a lot to the canon argument for it. There's really no argument. I mean, it's canon. I mean, in the episode that we just watched, I mean, it pretty much nails it. I mean, that is just a straight up Star Trek episode through and through. I mean, between Roddenberry, the director, the writer, and so yeah, everything is there that makes Trek Trek.
I agree. One day Chris, we're gonna have to get you and Jim Morehouse on the same call because he is very anti-animated series. I'd love to hear you guys.
He's just wrong.
Oh,
he is wrong, and that is that.
All right. Now, I think when he hears that, there'll be a challenge issued. We're gonna have to do a supplemental and talk about this. So, Craig Cohen, any thoughts before we close the episode up?
No, it's just been really a lot of fun getting back to these commentary tracks.
So, Craig, where can people find you? You're still Mr. Craig Cohen on Twitter?
Yep, that's Mr. with an MR. And also, I am co-manager of the TTT_pod Twitter account as well.
Yes, you are. And by the way, do you want to throw out a couple plugs for your other shows? I know you've got a couple other irons on the fire out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I have another series that I've been doing called Big Screen Book Club, which has been a lot of fun. And on every episode, we read a book and then look at a movie that was adapted from that book. And we're actually just finishing up our coverage of Hulu's 11/22/63 based on the Stephen King book of the same name. So we have a lot of great stuff planned for that show. And then, of course, me and you, we do the Slycast together, which has just been a ton of fun. And the response to that has been so amazing.
Yeah, I agree that we were, as a show that started off very small and almost as an offhand joke, it turned into this incredible thing. We have so many awesome listeners on Slycast. So if you're a Stallone fan, the Slycast is a celebration retrospective of Sly's film and television career. And we just did, we're at Cliffhanger. We just passed Cliffhanger, right, Craig?
Yeah. And we're getting into an interesting aspect of his career. And I also want to say that what's been going on with Sly lately, and we talked about this on one of the last episodes of the Slycast, is it's really sort of validated our show.
It really has.
Our show has been built around what a great underappreciated talent he is. And then with this Oscar nomination and sort of this third resurgence of his career, it's been a really great time to sit back and sort of see that and really appreciate the fact that we'd been singing it from the rooftops and the rest of the world is catching up.
Yeah. It actually feels like we were in it at the exact right time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a heck of a lot of fun. And you and I also make some appearances on the Zilch, a Monkeys podcast as well. So we'll throw that one out there.
Yeah, and another big year for that band. They're coming up on their 50th, just like Star Trek. And there's a lot of exciting stuff going on with them. And we also have a Zilch related product or project that I'm anxiously awaiting coming out, which is a commentary track we did that's going to be commercially available.
Yeah. Is there a release date for that yet?
Not yet. So I guess we should sort of just keep our mouths a little quiet. But that's going to be really cool to know that we can go on Amazon and buy a DVD with our voices on it.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. I'm going to have to buy a bunch of them for Christmas gifts and give them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that about wraps it up for episode 102 of the Tricorder Transmissions of our regular series. We'll be back again next week with another episode of the animated series. Thanks as always for tuning in. Craig and Chris, awesome talking with you.
It's good being on again. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, Chris, it's always wonderful to have your input.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll see everybody next week. Thanks as always for listening. Hi there, thanks again for listening. If you're cruising the galaxy looking for even more Trek talk, why not visit our good friends Bill and Dan over at TrekGeeks.com? They've got a great podcast that covers a wide range of Star Trek topics, so you're sure to find something you'll love. And if you're in the mood for some awesome tunes, then you really need to head over to 5yearmission.net. The guys are writing a song for every episode of the original series, and each one is absolutely brilliant. So that's TrekGeeks.com and 5yearmission.net. Check them out today.